Okay, we got to talk about softball. We could talk
Oh,
about
okay.
OU football all day long. You are the voice of OU softball. How many national championships now for you playing?
I got 5. I've got 5.
Five.
3 in a row.
Five-time
Yeah.
national champion voice of OU
Got my
softball.
rings back there somewhere.
This team is 49-6. It just feels like they're held to an insanely high standard. Like,
Yes. Yes.
so let's start here. What does this team, as they head into postseason play, what does this team do really well?
Defense. They're one of the best defensive teams I've seen for Oklahoma. And it's wild because you lost Grace Lyons, right? And I think for TRA Jennings, TR is a little bit of a different athlete, right? Grace Lyons looked like a baseball player playing softball, right? She had if you put a ball cap on her while she was out there, you'd be like, that's baseball shortstop, right? Just in the way she handled herself. TRA Jennings is a little longer. She's got the longer levers, so it doesn't look as dynamic as it did with Grace Lyons, but she's been fantastic. Alyssa Brito on the left side has become, I think, she's one of the 25 finalists for Player of the Year. Both of them are. Your entire left side of the infield is for Oklahoma. And Brito might be the best third baseman in the game right now. So defensively, they're nails. And, an area that they'd been really good at historically, Gabe, is an area where they'd struggled a little bit at times. Their timely hitting, the clutch hitting, 2-out RBIs, runners in scoring position, whichever metric you want to use. But since losing Oklahoma State last Saturday, they've been dynamic in that area in their last 4 games. And for the most part this year, save a game or two here or there, they've been dynamic whenever it comes to getting runners home with runners in scoring position, to getting those clutch hits. So they're a really good defensive softball team, really good. I didn't even mention Jada and Riley Boone in the outfield and Kinsey Hansen behind home plate. They're really, really good hitting team when they're on the right track. Seems like they're a little more streaky than they've been in years past, which is fine because they're hot right now going into the postseason. But it's just been a Patty Gasso coach team. They're good at defense. Struggles wise, they haven't been as consistent in the circle as they were. And what's crazy is, Jordy Ball's one of the greatest pitchers in the history of the game. I mean, she's amazing. I hate that she's gone, but you don't usually replace an All-American with an All-American. And that's what Oklahoma did in Kelly Maxwell. The only difference is, Kelly had been dominant all year, and then she's kind of struggled here her last few outings, right? Walks have been a problem so far this year, but you got the best coach, you got the best pitching coach. You've seen Nicole May do well out of the pen. You saw Kirsten Deal develop. Carly Keeney threw well last Sunday against Oklahoma State. So I feel really good about that pitching depth going into the postseason, where they've kind of struggled at times with their starters.
Now, you've been there for 5 championship runs, and this is one of the things that we don't get to see. Every team, whether it's Little League soccer all the way up to NFL football, every team has a personality, and it's different from one year to the next. Sometimes maybe you have a senior-led or a veteran-led team that's a little more serious. Sometimes maybe it's a younger team that is, a little more fun, a little more rambunctious. What's the personality of this team like compared to maybe some of the past championship type seasons that you've been a part of?
The 16 team, that was Sid Romero's freshman year. Aaron Miller was the senior captain. That was a team that was kind of too young to know what they were in the midst of. It's like, whoa, we just won a title. The 17 team was kind of a disaster going into the postseason. I mean, they lost their first postseason game to North Dakota State, had to rally through their regional, and then went on the road and beat Auburn and won the title. Never lost again. 21 was a bit of a mess. They couldn't pitch it real well. Then all of a sudden, G. Juarez got hot. 22 was maybe their most complete team going into the postseason, where you're just like, yeah, we're winning the national title. And if I'm not mistaken, 21 or 22, they lost their first game of the World Series. I think that was 21. But 22 and 23 were the two teams where you went into the postseason and you're like, they're winning the national title. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. No one's stopping them. They're the most confident team. This was even with Jordy Ball getting hurt. They're the most confident team. They're the best team. You're not going to stop them. This year, you go into it and you say, this team has the best players. Oklahoma's got the best players. They've got the most talent. Look at the top 20. I don't know why I keep pointing to my laptop here or something like people can see it, but they've got the best players. They've got the best 25. They've got, I would say, the best lineup in all of college softball. They have the best pitching staff in all of college softball. But this has been a team so far that I think, Ted, has just been like a tick off. I don't know what, just something small. It's nothing major. Now, that Friday night loss to BYU, people probably thought it was something major when they got smoked by BYU. Were you at that game, Gabe? You weren't at that game, were you?
Luckily, I was not.
Okay. But that Friday night game is still one of those that sticks in like the back of your mind, or like, how did that happen? But the crazy thing is, even in those moments where you feel like, it's this team that's just, maybe they've won 3 straight titles and they realize we've won 3 straight titles. What more can we do? Maybe they realize the end is coming and their career's over and they're like, I'm ready to move on. I mean, you had 4 of their players get drafted in the first round of the draft yesterday. I mean, maybe they're ready to move on. But then you'll have these moments like the Sunday game against Oklahoma State, like the Big 12 tournament, like the trip to Orlando where you're like, okay, they're locked in. And maybe it's a team that's just been waiting for the postseason to get going. I'll say this, and some would look at this as an excuse, but a lot. I love coming on here because I feel like there's a lot of fans that, don't get to watch softball all year long, or maybe they start following it now. But one of the great things about Love's Field is that it's created such an incredible home field advantage. I mean, it is wild. There is one bad thing, though. One, they just moved in Sunday. They haven't been in there all season long. So they had been doing, they just started doing batting practice 2 weeks ago there. They've been lockering at Marita Hines, and they'd have to bus down to Love's Field, and then they'd bus back, and then they'd bus back. So it had a little bit of a not feels like a home field to them, I think. Well, they're in there now, and they've got their lockers, and they've got their team room, and they got their, I mean, it's amazing what's in there for them. So I think there might have been a little bit of, just getting comfortable there. And now that they're comfortable there and now that they're in there, I think that's something that is just immeasurable in what it can mean for this team.
What's the draw like for the
Good.
Sooners?
Good.
Number 2 overall seed in the
Yep.
tournament. Texas gets the number 1 overall seed. When you look at the regional, Cleveland State, Oregon, and Boston University.
Yeah, the Terriers. Terriers came here in 2018. We played them in the first round and beat them. What's funny about that 2018 year, guys, we played in New Mexico earlier that season, and Boston University beat us. They beat us it's called the Troy Cox Classic. It's played every year in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And we went there 2 of my first 3 years that I did games. And it's literally one of those events where you go to, you're like, why are we here? This is OU, this is OU softball. What are we doing here in Las Cruces? And then lo and behold, they got beat. And you're like, this makes no sense. Boston U celebrating. And then they came here and we beat them. Really good team. Really good team. In fact, I think there's a chance Boston U is who we're going to play in the second round. I mean, they're that good. But Oregon is the storyline, right? Oregon is, their head coach is Missy Lombardi. She played at Oklahoma. She was coach's right-hand man. She was her pitching coach for 20 years. Great friend. And so she took the Oregon job, and she became the head coach at Oregon. And I think 19 was her first year. And when she took the Oregon job, Sid Romero is her hitting coach. Sidney Romero, whom we were talking about earlier. Sam Martyrs on her staff. Sam had been with us before. So Oregon is a team that if they were on your schedule during the regular season, you're like, this is going to be a fun game because we played against them. We know everyone that coaches and is on that team, but we're going to beat them, right? But now you see them in the postseason, you're like, they only got to beat you like twice. And Sid knows everything. Missy knows everything. But Oklahoma's a better team. I like the draw a lot. There's some drama with the knowledge of Oklahoma and having not played against or coached against Oregon since Missy left. Yes, big time drama. And I love the 15 draw. I mean, Florida State's I don't know if Florida State's going to come out of that. Auburn, Mickey Dean, their head coach retired, announced his retirement midseason, and Auburn went like scorched earth. They were on fire.
Plank, let me jump in real quick.
Go ahead.
Maybe explain why
I'm
you're
sorry.
talking about, because everyone, like you mentioned, we've got a lot of OU football fans that I think everyone's dialed in on the regional, super regional structure of how things work in softball, but maybe explain why you're talking about the Tallahassee regional.
Okay. So 1 through 16 is how, and there's 4 teams in each regional. So if you're ranked 1 through 16, you get to host. But 1 through 8 host the super regional, which would be the next round. So as long as you win your regional, you get to host the super regional, which means to get to the World Series, you never have to leave home if you're in the top 8. There is some debate about Florida State, whom it might seem wild to you because that's who we beat for the national title last year. They're only the 15 seed. They've not had a great year. The ACC, while it's deep, it really didn't wow this season, though I love Duke. They got hosed in the top 8. But this regional for Florida State has Chattanooga, Auburn, and UCF. And the way that it lines up, it's 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15. So if Oklahoma gets through its 4-team regional, you got Florida State, Auburn, UCF, and Chattanooga. And whoever, ends up not losing 2 games, I guess is the best way to put it, is moving on. And I'm telling you right now, in what Auburn has done in just, I think, playing for their coach, I don't know, I'm not around him. It sure seems like it. And UCF has a pitcher named Sarah Willis. She's just absolutely insane. She's so good, but they hardly ever pitch her. I don't get it. She's a transfer. I think she came from Washington. So if they decide that they're going to unleash her in the postseason, she could lead UCF to the Tallahassee regional title. So I'm a big believer in Oklahoma's path being a very smooth, solid one. They haven't lost a super regional game since 2015. If I'm honest with you, there's a part of me that's a little bit more concerned about the regional field than I would be the super regional field.
What about just the big picture, the overall field compared to years past? Stronger, weaker, top heavy? How would you kind of generalize the entire tournament?
Infinitely stronger. Teams have gone out and they've really committed to beating Oklahoma. I can't think of any other way to put it. Oklahoma has set a level that's here, and you see teams that have been creeping towards it, right? There were 3 teams that were going to be the top 3, and we knew that: Oklahoma, Texas, and Tennessee. And Tennessee's got an incredible staff. Peyton Gottschall is unbelievable in the circle for them. They've got a couple former Oklahoma players, including Sophia Nugent, who've had a really good season. So Carlin Pickens has been really good at Tennessee too. So I really, really, really like Tennessee. And the problem with Tennessee, guys, is they gave them a tough regional. I don't know if you remember the opening game at Love's Field. We played Miami of Ohio, and they ended up, I think they're going to set the all-time home run record for a team beating Oklahoma's record from 2021 or 2022. So they're gonna break a record for most home runs in a season, and they're going to Knoxville to play potentially against Tennessee. But you look at the field, and you look 1 through 16, you could find any regional host that could find themselves upset by a team in their regional. And that's just the regional. That's how deep it is. Like, I'm looking at UCLA's regional right now. San Diego State, Virginia Tech, Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon knocked them out last year. Grand Canyon's got a girl from Washington on their team. And they've got a former Sooner that's their grad assistant. So and when I say Washington, I mean my Washington Warriors. Let's go. 3-time state baseball champs. But UCLA's really good. But San Diego State's one of the better mid-major teams I've seen this year. They could win it. How about this? Missouri gets a 7 seed. So that means Missouri's in a position to host a super regional. Well, guess what? They send Washington to their regional, who was one of the better teams I've seen early in the season. They've struggled, but it's also a World Series team from last year. They send maybe the best mid-major in Omaha to Missouri. And then, oh, yeah, by the way, Missouri, if you move on to the super regionals and you're hosting, Duke might be there waiting, who was a team that was absolutely hosed out of a super regional. So, or at least a hosting site. So, Ted, it's wild to watch this year. You get the sense that, not that people are catching up to Oklahoma, but teams are making the commitment. If it's facilities, if it's finances, if it's, just hitting the portal, it's going to be as competitive of a tournament, I think, as we've seen in a long time.
All right, Plank. We asked people to send some questions in for you. We've got 3.
Okay, I'm ready.
First one comes from Jeremy LaForce. Who is OU's toughest competition in their regional?
In the regional, well, Oregon. Oregon's good. I think Boston U just might have a little something for them. But if it was, I'd much rather see a Boston U on Saturday than an Oregon. But Oregon is the stiffest competition that they're going to face in their regional. Absolutely. And, I don't, it probably wouldn't be until the championship series, but man, I'm going to tell you, Duke scares me. Duke's a really good team. That's looking way ahead, but just for the question, Oregon is that team.
Shalissa McCarter asks,
Great name.
which regional could you see the biggest upset? And who could be a dark horse Women's College World Series Champ Series contender?
Which regional could see the biggest upset? I think Arizona could get out of the Fayetteville regional. That's if DJ Gasso is hearing this, I'm sorry, dude, but I think Kentucky could get out of the Stillwater regional. If Oklahoma State plays like they did on Friday, Thursday against BYU, like they did Sunday against Oklahoma, they could be in trouble. Those are 2 that really jump out to me. Oh, Texas A&M. I think there's a really good chance that Texas State beats Texas A&M. If they end up matching up, that regional is Texas A&M, looks like Albany, Penn State, and Texas State. If Texas State plays Texas A&M, I think they can beat them and end up in the super regional against Texas.
Last one. This comes from Rodney Cheek, and this is not an easy question.
Uh-oh.
Who is on your Mount Rushmore of OU softball?
Ooh. Mount Rushmore has 4, right? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, sorry. Patty Gasso. Wait, does it have to be a player? No player. Okay.
Players only. Players only. We all know that if it was a Mount Rushmore, that it would just be a giant thing of Patty. 4 different poses from Patty.
I think there's 3 slam dunks. I think there's 3 unquestioned. Lauren Chamberlain, Jocelyn Allo, Kalani Ricketts. Those are 3. That battle for the 4th is because you've got a class that's graduating where they've already won 3 rings and might win a 4th. So you're telling me that one person from that team wouldn't be on that? I'd probably put Tiare Jennings. Would be who I would put on there. That's just me. I'd go.
Ted has the look of a man that disagrees.
I don't disagree. I've just that's the 4th spot is
you can't figure it out.
It's hard. There's so many from a bunch of different eras. There's
some would say Jen Stewart. Now that's really going back. That's 2000. She pitched them to the first national championship. Some would say Sid Romero, who in 2016 led them. Some would say Shelby Pinley. Oh, that's tough. That's a really good question. I would add 4 more is what I would. Mount Rushmore would expand.
New location.
And you would new location, and we'd add 4 more heads to it, and we'd go from there. But that's tough. I think 3's a slam dunk. I think it's Allo, it's Chamberlain, and it's Kalani Ricketts. Then beyond that, I don't think you can go wrong with any of the 5 or 6 that I'm. Jada Coleman was a 3-time All-American, right? Kinsey Hansen is maybe one of the best catchers in the history of the game. And oh, by the way, we might have the 2nd or 3rd best in Jessica Schultz too. So Amber Flores was awesome. Yeah, it's tough. I'm officially going to go with Tiare. I'm going to be a prisoner in the moment, and I'd put her up there.
I say put Plank's face up there.
Put me up there, by God. Let's go.
How about that? No. Hey, Plank, you're the man.
Thanks, guys.
You're going to be on the call for Westwood One, right? Not just OU stuff. You're going to be doing a ton of stuff throughout the tournament.
Yep. There's not ink to contract yet, but there is the confirmation text email chain. So we're good to go on that front.
Deal. You do not agree to that unless it's a good deal. You need to be compensated fairly.
I'll push it in front of you, Ted. I'll have you get the final word on if they're doing me right.
Plank, you're the best, man. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, guys. See you later.